Hello, my little love. Did you have a good day today? I hope something made you smile. Now take a slow breath, relax your shoulders, and let your mind get soft and quiet. It's time for a gentle bedtime story. Once upon a time, in a small village by the sea where fishing boats bobbed gently in the harbor, and seagulls sang their morning songs, there lived a kind blind man named Shim and his daughter, Cheong. Their cottage was simple and small, with a thatched roof and a tiny garden where wildflowers grew between the stones. They didn't have much, but they had each other, and that was everything. Cheong's father had lost his sight when she was just a baby, too young to remember him any other way. She had grown up as his eyes, describing the world to him in soft, careful words. She would tell him when the cherry blossoms opened in spring, each petal like a tiny pink cloud. She would describe the way the sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and gold. She would guide his hand to feel the smooth river stones she collected, each one a different shape and size. Every morning, Cheong would wake with the sunrise and prepare a simple breakfast of rice and soup. She would lead her father gently by the hand to their small table, and they would eat together while she told him about her dreams from the night before. After breakfast, Cheong would go out to help the neighbors, doing small tasks to earn a little money or food. She would carry water for the elderly woman who lived next door. She would help the fisherman's wife mend nets, her small fingers moving carefully through the rope. She never complained, and she always wore a gentle smile. The villagers loved Cheong dearly. They would often say to one another, "Have you ever seen such a devoted daughter? She cares for her father with such patience and love." Some would leave extra rice at their doorstep. Others would bring vegetables from their gardens. Everyone wanted to help this kind girl and her gentle father. One warm afternoon in late summer, when the cicadas were singing in the trees, and the air smelled of salt and sunshine, Cheong's father was walking alone near the village temple. He knew the path well, counting his steps carefully, feeling his way with his walking stick. But on this day, he misjudged a turn and stumbled, falling into a shallow ditch beside the road. He wasn't hurt badly, just shaken and embarrassed, his clothes dusty and his pride wounded. A kind monk from the temple heard the sound and hurried over. "Are you all right, friend?" the monk asked gently, helping the blind man to his feet. Cheong's father brushed off his clothes and thanked the monk, his voice trembling slightly. The monk studied him with compassionate eyes and said softly, "I know of a temple far in the mountains where prayers are offered for healing. They say if you make a generous offering there, miracles can happen. Even sight can be restored to those who have lost it." Cheong's father felt his heart leap like a fish jumping from water. "Truly?" he asked. "Could I really see again? Could I look upon my daughter's face?" The monk nodded. "The offering needed is 300 bags of rice. It is much, I know. But for a miracle, it is said to be worth it." The blind man thanked the monk and made his way home slowly, his mind full of wonder and hope. That evening, as Cheong served dinner, her father was unusually quiet. She noticed and asked gently, "Father, is something troubling you?" He hesitated, then told her about the monk and the temple and the possibility of seeing again. "But 300 bags of rice," he sighed. "We barely have enough for ourselves. It's an impossible dream." Cheong's heart ached for her father. That night, she lay in her small bed and looked out the window at the stars, those tiny lights that her father had never seen. She thought about how wonderful it would be if he could see the world, see the flowers she described, see the sunsets, see her face. She wanted this for him more than anything. The next day, Cheong heard something that made her think. Some merchants from a far city had come to the village looking for a special offering to the Sea Dragon King, who they believed controlled the storms and calmed the waters. They needed someone brave and pure of heart to be part of a ceremony at sea. In return, they would pay 300 bags of rice. Cheong's heart beat fast. This was exactly what her father needed. Without telling him her plan, she went to the merchants and offered herself for the ceremony. The merchants were moved by her devotion and agreed. They would give the 300 bags of rice to her father, and in return, she would join their ceremony when the full moon came. Cheong arranged for the rice to be delivered to the temple on her father's behalf, with a note saying it was an anonymous donation for his healing. She asked the village baker, a kind woman who had always been good to them, to look after her father while she was away. She told her father she was going to visit a distant village to work for a few weeks, and though it hurt to not tell him the full truth, she knew it would hurt him more to know what she was really doing. The night before she was to leave, Cheong sat with her father under the stars. The air was cool and smelled of night-blooming jasmine. She held his hand and described the sky to him one more time. "The stars are especially bright tonight, Father," she said softly. "They look like silver dust scattered across dark blue silk. There's a cricket singing nearby. Can you hear it? And the moon is almost full, round and glowing like a pearl." Her father squeezed her hand gently. "You've been my eyes for so long, my dear daughter. You've painted the world for me with your words. I hope these prayers at the temple work. I hope I can see you soon." Cheong's eyes filled with tears, but she kept her voice steady. "I hope so too, Father. I love you very much." The next morning, with the sunrise painting the sky in soft pinks and golds, Cheong went to the harbor where the merchant's ship was waiting. It was a beautiful vessel with sails that caught the morning breeze like clouds. The merchants welcomed her kindly, respecting her courage and her loving sacrifice. As the ship sailed away from shore, Cheong stood at the railing and watched her village grow smaller and smaller until it disappeared into the mist. The journey across the sea was peaceful. Dolphins played alongside the ship, leaping through the waves in graceful arcs. Seabirds called overhead, and the sun sparkled on the water like thousands of tiny diamonds. Cheong spent her days on the ship helping the crew and praying quietly for her father's happiness. When the night of the full moon arrived, the ship stopped in a calm part of the sea where the water was deep and dark blue. The ceremony began with songs and prayers. Cheong stood at the edge of the ship, looking down at the water that reflected the moon like a mirror. She closed her eyes and thought of her father, sending him all her love across the distance. Then, something magical happened. Instead of the ceremony ending sadly, the Sea Dragon King himself appeared in a shimmer of silver light and gentle waves. He had been watching Cheong's journey and was deeply moved by her pure and loving heart. "You have shown such devotion and selfless love," he said in a voice like water flowing over smooth stones. "Such goodness must be rewarded, not punished." The Dragon King lifted Cheong gently from the ship on a platform of soft, glowing sea foam. He brought her to his underwater palace, which was built of coral and pearls and filled with the most beautiful gardens of sea flowers and graceful fish that swam like birds through the water. "Here you will stay as my honored guest," the Dragon King said kindly, "until the right time comes for you to return to your father." Cheong lived in the palace under the sea for many days. And though she was treated with great kindness and given everything she could want, she missed her father terribly. The Dragon King understood. He could see her longing, her gentle sadness. And so he made a special plan. One day, the Dragon King told Cheong that a great ship belonging to a noble lord would soon pass through these waters. This lord was wise and kind, recently widowed and lonely, with a good heart. "I will send you back to the surface inside a beautiful lotus flower," the Dragon King explained. "When the Lord finds you, he will be so amazed by your goodness and grace that he will want to marry you. And once you are a nobleman's wife, you will have the means to find your father again." And so it happened exactly as the Dragon King said. Cheong was placed gently inside a giant lotus blossom that floated on the surface of the calm sea, glowing softly in the sunlight. When the Lord's ship passed by and the sailors saw this miraculous sight, they brought the lotus carefully aboard. When it opened like a flower blooming in the morning, there was Cheong, looking like a dream, her eyes full of kindness and mystery. The Lord was indeed moved by her, and after hearing her story of devotion to her father, he was even more impressed. Such a daughter would make a wonderful wife and partner, he thought. He asked her to marry him, and Cheong, seeing that he was truly kind and good, agreed. The wedding was beautiful but simple, just as Cheong preferred, with flowers and soft music and gentle celebration. But even on her wedding day, Cheong thought of her father. She asked her new husband if they might travel to her home village so she could see her father again. The Lord agreed immediately, for he understood the depth of her love. Meanwhile, something wonderful had happened to Cheong's father. After the offering was made at the temple, the monks had prayed for him faithfully. And one morning, when he woke up, he found that the darkness that had surrounded him for so many years was beginning to lighten. Slowly, gradually, like dawn breaking, his sight began to return. First he could see only light and shadow, then shapes, then colors, and finally, clearly, beautifully, he could see. The first thing he wanted to see was his daughter's face, the face he had never seen, that he had only known through touch and imagination. But when he went to look for her, she was nowhere to be found. The baker told him gently that Cheong had left to work in a distant place. His heart was full of both joy at his restored sight and sadness at his daughter's absence. Then one day, a fine procession came to the village, led by a noble lord and his wife. The whole village gathered to see, curious and excited. And when the lady stepped down from her carriage, removing her veil, the blind man who could now see looked upon his daughter's face for the very first time. "Father," Cheong said softly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Can you see me?" "Yes," her father whispered, his own eyes filling with tears of joy. "Yes, my dear daughter. I can see you. And you are even more beautiful than I ever dreamed." They embraced for a long time while the villagers cheered and cried happy tears. The Lord, moved by this reunion, insisted that Cheong's father come to live with them in his great house, where he would never want for anything again. And so the blind man who could now see, and his devoted daughter, and her kind husband all lived together in happiness and peace. Cheong's father would often sit in the garden of their new home, watching the flowers bloom and the birds fly, seeing the sunsets he had only heard about for so long. And he would tell everyone who listened about his daughter's love, how her devotion had not only restored his sight but had brought blessings beyond measure. The villagers remembered Cheong's story for generations, telling it to their children and grandchildren as an example of pure love and devotion. And they would say that sometimes, on quiet nights when the moon was full, you could see a soft glow on the sea where the Dragon King's palace lay beneath the waves, reminding everyone that goodness and love are always rewarded, though not always in ways we expect. You did well today, my little love. Now let your eyes grow heavy, and let the night wrap around you like a soft blanket. Sleep well, sweet dreams, and rest deeply.